Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the high-stakes reality of the academic world. The title of today's deck is The Cost of a Fake Publication: Why Research Integrity Matters Today. Now, ideally, academia is this noble quest for truth, right? But what actually happens when that pure pursuit collides head-on with some seriously intense professional pressure? It really begs the question, what happens when the people searching for the truth are pressured to manufacture it? It's a heavy question. We generally just assume scientific research is purely objective, don't we? But our source material today, a really eye-opening piece called The Cost of a Fake Publication, shows us the dangerous consequences of prioritizing fast-paced academic output over actual factual accuracy. As you'll see, this pressure to publish, it's creating some massive cracks in the foundation of science.
Welcome to the publish or perish culture. Let's look at two totally different realities from our source. On one side, we've got Dr. Ali. He's a young, highly ethical lecturer. He spent 2 whole years doing rigorous experiments, crunching the data, and that resulted in 3 really solid papers. But then, on the other side, we have his senior, Professor Khan. Khan casually drops that some researchers are expected to publish 20 or more papers a year. 20! When Dr. Ali asks how that sheer volume is literally even possible, Professor Khan just smiles and says, "You'll learn." It absolutely nails the staggering gap between ethical methodology and these crazy volume-driven expectations.
Now consider the sheer weight of a number like 150. In the source material, we get a peek into a promotion committee meeting, and they're reviewing a faculty member who boasts an astounding 150 publications. Let's just do the math on that for a second. To publish 150 papers in a single year, you'd be churning out a fully researched, peer-reviewed scientific study every 2.5 days. I mean, come on. That is practically impossible. Yet, when one committee member actually questions the quality of these papers, the response they get is chillingly blunt. We only count numbers. When promotion committees focus entirely on numerical output, the actual quality and the scientific validity behind that volume are just completely sidelined.
So that brings us to Section 1, the pitfalls, when quantity beats quality.
This immense pressure to hit those high numbers, it leads to some really alarming advice. In our source, a PhD student named Sarah repeats an experiment 4 times, right? Only to find her hypothesis just isn't supported. And she shares this deeply disturbing anecdote. Another supervisor actually told her friend to literally adjust the numbers so the statistics would miraculously become significant. It's a huge temptation to manipulate data. When quantity and positive results are demanded above absolutely everything else, researchers are under heavy pressure to manufacture success rather than just, report reality.
But here is the absolutely crucial takeaway. Negative results are still scientific results. Science is fundamentally about discovering the truth, not making it up. Adjusting numbers is straight-up research misconduct. Actually, think about it this way. A field hypothesis is a highly valuable scientific finding because it tells us what doesn't work. And honestly, that is just as vital for scientific progress as discovering what does.
And the pressure to produce doesn't just invite data manipulation. It opens the door to predatory exploitation. Listen to this actual email received by a master's student named Bilal in our source. "Congratulations, publish within 5 days, acceptance guaranteed." I mean, it sounds exactly like a late-night infomercial, right? But when researchers are desperate to boost their publication count quickly, these guaranteed lightning-fast fixes are incredibly tempting.
So what's really going on here? Well, it involves predatory journals. These are exploitative publishers that promise rapid publication for a fee, all without conducting any proper peer review. Professor Khan's advice to Bilal is just to accept it as normal, just pay the fee. But Dr. Ali steps in with a huge warning. He explains that publishing in these predatory journals doesn't strengthen your reputation. It literally destroys it. The lack of peer review means the science isn't vetted at all, which just degrades the entire scientific ecosystem.
And the shortcuts don't stop there. They also bleed over into academic authorship. On one hand, we've got ghost authors. These are people whose names are slapped onto a paper, even though they made zero intellectual contribution. And then, on the flip side, you have uncredited researchers. These are often the actual students doing all the legwork whose names are left off the whole shebang entirely. Our source reveals this massive systemic pressure to improperly add senior professors to papers just to game the system, falsely boost credibility, and basically mislead evaluators. It's not just some minor technicality, guys. It is outright academic dishonesty.
Which leads us to Section 2, the antidote: true research integrity. So, in an ethics seminar, Dr. Ali outlines the foundational pillars of research integrity. Instead of just a boring checklist, think of these as the core DNA of good science. It starts with reporting data honestly and respecting participants. It demands transparency, so avoiding plagiarism, giving proper authorship only to genuine contributors, and declaring conflicts of interest. It also means committing to reputable, peer-reviewed journals and, like we talked about earlier, accepting those negative results. Why does this all matter? Well, because without honesty and transparency, trust in science completely crumbles. If evaluators and the public can't trust the process, the publications themselves mean absolutely nothing.
This builds to a really fascinating ideological clash between the pragmatic Professor Khan and the ethical Dr. Ali. Khan argues that Ali is just being way too idealistic, basically saying, hey, this is just how the system works. But Dr. Ali counters with a really hard truth. Systems only change when people refuse to participate in unethical practices. Just one honest researcher standing their ground can inspire hundreds more, effectively challenging and eventually dismantling a totally broken system from the inside out.
Let's zoom out a bit for Section 3, the global impact of academic pressure.
Because look, research misconduct isn't unique to any one country or just one university hallway. These intense internal pressures for grants, promotions, and publication quotas, they directly fuel global, real-world consequences. We see it driving widespread unethical behavior everywhere, from plagiarism and data fabrication to falsification, inappropriate authorship, and feeding that whole predatory journal industry. These internal academic struggles have massive external consequences, and ultimately they threaten the global public's trust in scientific data as a whole.
Which brings us right to the core theme of our source material. The future of science depends not on the number of papers we publish, but on the honesty behind every result. The bedrock of scientific progress isn't volume. It isn't some arbitrary quota. It is transparency, accountability, and unshakable integrity.
So, I'll leave you with this. Will you trust the numbers or the integrity behind them? As you consume, evaluate, and rely on scientific information out there in the modern world, remember that the true value of research isn't found in a simple headcount of publications. It's found in the rigorous, honest process that brought those results to light. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking great questions, and I'll catch you next time.